The Morgan Thomas Show.
What's up, everybody? It's the Morgan Thomas Show with Big Al and plus Houston, as you see on the right-hand side. I hope you're enjoying your week so far. It is Thursday night, 8 p.m. I know we promised you 7 p.m. We promised you in a really fancy studio. We promised you on the radio, and those things have not come true yet. But they will come true. I promise you. If you accept any more promises, believe me, I've been promising the two guys on this screen a lot more money than they're getting right now. So there are a lot of broken promises on the Morgan Thomas Show. Let's just put it that way. But one promise is that we are going to give you Clemson content every single week, and we are back. And it is 8 o'clock again. Hopefully, next Thursday is going to be the big Roar kickoff show. So we actually are going to be there at Twin Peaks in Greenville. Some of us be there, maybe all of us. I think all of us are going to try to be there, but definitely the rest of the Roar personalities will all be there, from Mickey Plyler to Brad Sinkiff to Walt Deptula to Quacken Kelly, and all the rest will be there for the kickoff show next Thursday. And then after that, on the 2nd, will be the Thursday where we hopefully, if all promises actually go through, we'll be in the studio and live on the Roar. And I'm excited about that because that's the week I was really looking forward to, is because it is game week. Can you believe it, guys? Game weeks. Game week is here, and it is the biggest game of the year. It's the first game of the year, but it's the biggest game of the year because it's against Georgia. Big top 5 matchup between those two teams. Really, do we know how it's going to go? Well, we think we know how it's going to go. We think that a lot of people wearing orange are going to be happy as they're leaving the stadium late at night. But, we'll talk about it, and I look forward to talking about the show or talking about that game specifically. We're going to talk about a little bit of the Georgia game, but I want to save everything and hold it for that week because it's going to be very hype. I know there's going to be a lot of smack talk from this show. All cordial, but real smack talk. Maybe not from Houston. Houston's saying no way. No way.
Oh, I'm getting real. It's going to be real smack talk, but it ain't going to be cordial. I can tell you that much.
Real smack talk. Houston, welcome in. I'll get to you, Al. You can take third place here.
Yeah, whatever.
Houston, I got to tell you, he's violating one of the NCAA rules of the show by wearing a non-Tiger Sports Shop authorized hat, but there's a little story behind wearing the hats. Tell the fans why it's so important that you wear this hat.
As if I have to explain myself. Look, one, it's good to switch it up. I've got teams that are successful. The Braves are back from the dead ever since this came on top of the head, and so that's why I'm wearing it. I'm rocking the Braves gear until otherwise. Hey, it might not be that great of an ending to a season, but at least the Braves are on top of the NL East, so I'm going to rock with this as long as I can.
Now, you cannot get that at Tiger Sports Shop, but Tiger Sports Shop, Sean Cartmill, Julie, they definitely understand how important it is to have those superstitions that, you had to hold on to. So if it's working, let's keep it going until it falls off the wagon. So if it falls off, then you can switch it up. But if it's working, let's keep it going. But I will tell you, you're making a lot of people jealous because every week people get in the chat and they say, where can I get that hat? And there's literally nowhere you can get that hat. I mean, maybe on eBay. I don't know. But
no, we got a little secret there. Maybe I'll tell you if you see me at a tailgate or something like that. But there's always got to be a little secret,
Well, Big Al is also in here. I know you guys want to hear from him because, I do videos on my own and all I hear is, we want to hear from Big Al. We want to hear from Big Al. Hey, where's Houston? So I know you don't want to hear from me, but Big Al, everybody's been waiting to get your thoughts on some of the topics tonight. You excited?
Yeah, ready to go. I can't wait until, like you said, September 2nd, that Thursday. We get to go live in studio, live on the air. That's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, right before game week. Everybody's been waiting for this one for a long time. Like you said, it's the biggest game of the year, and it's going to be huge. I hope it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a good game. We got some interesting stuff to talk about as far as Georgia's concerned. Maybe a little bit tonight. I'm sure a lot more on the 2nd, but got a lot of good stuff going on.
I'm so excited for that week. Like I said, I want to go ahead and the guys have been holding me back from actually going ahead and doing these clips because I'm so excited about it. I'm so amped for it. And I'm telling you, read some of the Georgia forums, read some of their blogs. They think they've got Clemson figured out. They think that looking back at the Notre Dame loss is a good example of what they can do or they should do in a couple of weeks. I beg to differ on my end. They don't seem to really remember that there were a lot of players missing from that game. Now, they mention it, but then they'll go right back into studying film on it and to tell you, as a Georgia fan, them what Georgia will do or should do. I say be careful. I say tread lightly on that old Notre Dame film. It's funny, though. They show that film, but I didn't really see much of the film from the ACC championship game. I don't know why. It's the same team. It's almost like one team showed up one week and then they didn't show up the next week. I wonder what the difference was. We'll get more into it. I know you know what I'm talking about. We'll get more into it as the weeks go on because guess what? It's college football season. Let's get in and let's give a shout out to everybody that's already in. If you don't know, I love to talk. Alan and Houston, they have to listen, but you don't have to. You can get in. You can put in the comments exactly what you want to talk about, and we will go through it. Alan will hold me to it. I'm telling you. All right, so we got Clemson Carson, Ahmad in there. He said, what's going on, guys? We're going good. I think we're doing good. You guys doing good? Nod head? Yep. Okay. Tyree Ross gets in, says, what's going on, fellas? SCU, what's up, everybody? Brent Naveen says, this is exactly what I need after a long 12-hour shift in the hospital. Wow. Hopefully you were helping people in the hospital, not actually a patient in the hospital for 12 hours. But, Brent, we are glad that you're here. Get any questions in. You deserve it. Get you a nice Coke Zero, even though, we're not sponsored by Coke Zero. I love them, but get you a nice Coke Zero. Kick back, listen to the show, and throw in your questions in the chat. Anthony gets in. What's up, Morgan? He didn't say what's up, you guys. Well, I guess he doesn't love you guys. I don't know what's going on with that. Kevron says, hi, Morgan Thomas, Big Al, Alan Adams. Hi, Houston Burnett, listening from Cope, SC. All right. Anthony says, what's up, mods? Randall gets in. Will our Clemson going to beat Georgia Bulldogs this year? Yes or no? Go ahead. You know what? The shortest answer I'm going to give you probably this entire year. Yes. What's up, Anthony? Kevron gets in. I'm not going to wear any of my Georgia Bulldog David Pollock jersey on game day.
Man, Kevron, you got more jerseys than I know, man. Kevron loves every team, dude. I'm glad he's on the Clemson
I will
side,
tell you
man.
this.
He
Kevron is our number one fan. He's been watching our shows since day one. He is a collector of jerseys. Okay, so you can't hold that against him. He does like literally every team as far as their jerseys go. And I know, there's some sneakerheads out there, but he's a jersey head because he has he has all kinds of jerseys out there. I don't know exactly how many, but SCU gets in. Jay Ross showed out today in scrimmage. I normally watch these clips afterwards, but I hadn't got any clips yet. So I'm excited after the show. Maybe I'll check it out. Randall gets in. Is Clemson going to beat Georgia? Okay. You said that already. So Kevron, go Tigers. We getting the same comments, like duplicate comments here. Let's see. Anthony, I'm glad to hear. I'm tired of hearing from the dogs that he won't be the same. Talking about Justin Ross, I'm assuming. Potter, inconsistent. Spires was killing it. So they're talking about the practice this week, but we welcome in everybody else. John, Randall, Tyree. Looks like the chat's already done forgot about us, fellas. They're already going on talking about the practice. So it seems like we had a good practice this week.
Bill Lanham, I'm sure he's very upset, by the way. Right past him. I
actually missed him on purpose because every time I do a video, he says, Morgan, are you forgetting Big Al in Houston? Why are you doing a video on your own? Somebody's got to keep the lights on. These guys only work one day a week. I got to do the rest. All right. So somebody's got to keep the lights on. But all right. So let's get into it, fellas, before we make Ron mad that we're not talking about college football, not being professional here. All right. We got 24 people on. Make sure you like our video. Like the video. That's number one. The algorithm, the number crunchers, the engineers, the man over at YouTube and Facebook. They need the likes in order for it to value our video. Nobody else will see it if there's no likes. Do that first. Next thing, share with a friend. If you don't know how to do that, ask a friend that may know how to do it. And then don't forget to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our channel over on YouTube, so you can stay up to date with all the stuff we post out. So, all right, let's get into it, fellas. Let's start it out. The Alliance was a big topic of the week. I did a video on it myself. ACC, Big Ten, Pac-12, discussing what they can do to be friends with benefits, I guess, and try to combat the SEC. Now, you know, guys, when we originally talked about this, I said that Clemson needs to jump ship, screw the ACC, go ahead and go to the SEC. And I got a lot of flack for that. And, you know, rightfully so. It was a knee-jerk reaction. I like this idea of an alliance. All right. So I'm going to start out with you, Houston. When you first heard this thing about the ACC, Big Ten, Pac-12, now it's still, we don't really know much about it other than they've been talking about it. But when you heard it, were you happy?
You know, I'm not going to say I was like mad or happy or anything like that. I think this could work if there are contingencies in Clemson's favor. If this is just, hey, every other year you're going to be playing a Thursday night game in Corvallis, Oregon, or playing a Thursday night game in at Northwestern or something like that, then I would say it's time to jump ship and head to the SEC. But if there's a pool of teams that you're pulling from that Clemson's going to be playing, Washington, Oregon, USC, Utah, maybe occasionally Arizona State. I know they're pretty good. Nebraska, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, and then Notre Dame. If those are the ones that Clemson is guaranteed to play, then I think it works out in their favor. Or even in a sense of if there's a red hot team one year and there's a lot of seniors coming back on that team, you know, maybe somebody like Indiana this year, if they were to come to Clemson or something like that, that would be an interesting matchup at least. But it's got to be in Clemson's favor. If it's just we're going to throw Clemson against whoever just to spread things out, I think it's time for them to go. But if they actually, you know, pay attention and give Clemson the matchups that they want and give the people the matchups that they want, then I think this would be a good idea.
Big Al, what were your thoughts? Did you agree that it's a good idea, but based on some stipulations and how things work out?
Yeah, I'm not really sure about all the ins and outs. Again, I tell you, you know, I don't follow all this too much, but I can tell you this: when I first heard about it, I was like, hey, anything where the rest of college football gives the proverbial middle finger to the SEC, I'm all for it. Okay. That was my first reaction. I'm thinking anything they can do to block whatever votes they want or whatever, you know, I'm all for that. I think my biggest concern is monetary, you know, is when the SEC redoes their contract, they're going to be making like double what every team in the ACC is making. All right. They're not going to be, you know, it's not quite double what Big Ten, because Big Ten's obviously making a lot more money. And most people make more money than the ACC. But look, they make more money right now, but double, you know, $35 million more a year, that's a lot of money. And I think eventually that can pay some dividends down the road. That's kind of my concern. If this alliance can somehow help, whether it be scheduling more attractive games or whatever it may be, I'm not even sure how that would work. But if they can somehow use this to get a better package for the ACC and the teams in there, then I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it first centers around, I said this, the schedules. I mean, when you look at the potential there, you've got your Clemson, South California, or Southern California, you've got Clemson, Oregon, you've got Clemson, Wisconsin, as Houston mentioned, you've got Clemson, Ohio State, Clemson, Penn State. I mean, heck, even Clemson, Iowa, I would be interested to see. I mean, even Clemson, Northwestern, just something different. I'll tell you, when I got tickets this year, again, I'm not really that excited about, you know, the best game being Boston College. I'd like to see a better lineup than that. I'm not excited about the best game that Clemson plays all year not even being in Clemson. And so that is another frustration too. Not even that. It's not even at Georgia either. So to me, I don't really like that. I want to see more home games. I want to see more eventful away games. I do think that neutral games are good for playoff settings, but I'd like to see Clemson go in there and destroy a team like Georgia in their own home and walk away not looking back. That would leave a big exclamation point on the game for sure. Going up into Penn State, go right into the whiteout, and then walking out with a win would be amazing as well. But the key to me too is like scheduling. There are a lot of teams that really don't bring a lot. Like Alan was saying, you got to figure it out. Like, okay, who are you going to develop a rivalry with? The one thing I was disappointed with the ACC is they developed a constant rivalry with Georgia Tech. And at the time, for a little bit, it was good. It was a good matchup, but it's kind of fizzled off and not been a really good continuous rivalry. And I would like to see Clemson be matched up with a rival permanent from those two conferences that also show the same amount of financial desire to be good at football. So I'm saying somebody like Ohio State should be somebody consistent. I don't want to see Ohio State once every 15 years. That's my thing. So if it's all about scheduling, I want to see the good teams play the good teams more than once or twice in my lifetime. Houston, what you think?
2 points here, and this is the first point of Georgia Tech. I don't care if they stink or not. They're like South Carolina to me in that range. I want to play them every year and beat them 73-7 every single year. So you may not like them. You may not think that's a great matchup, but I remember 98, 99, 2000. I remember 2004 sitting in front of Calvin Johnson. So I want to see Georgia Tech get stuck every year by Clemson. So I'll just throwing that out there first. The thing about the schedule, the other contingency that I was thinking about here is Clemson's future schedules. Clemson is scheduled to play Georgia, LSU. They're scheduled to play Notre Dame a few times. Oklahoma in the 30s. I know that's like years away. But is Clemson going to lose those games? Because to be honest with you, I'd rather take a trip to Athens or Baton Rouge or Norman than having to substitute that for some of the teams in the Big Ten. I mean, if you sub out one of those for Ohio State or Oregon or somebody like that, then I might not say anything. But if you sub out LSU to go somewhere in the Big Ten, I'd have a problem with that. I want to play LSU. I want to play the SEC schools. I think that's the best measuring stick for Clemson to show where they are as a program, which kind of, to me, leans in the favor that if this were to go through, I'd tend to lean more towards Clemson going to the SEC.
Oh, wow.
Just so that, and I'm fine with a chance to play Ohio State and all those, but how are you going to work that out without losing those games? I don't want Clemson to lose the big games because Clemson's always going to play South Carolina, and I'm fine with that. I want to stick them every year too. But I don't want them to lose the opportunity to play SEC schools that are close by that are going to bring in a ton of revenue to the area. We're going to bring a ton of revenue to their area. And, it's a measuring stick. So how are you going to balance that?
I think, that's something that's an angle I didn't think about at all. If there is an alliance that's formed, you got to think there is going to be a loss. A lot of people assume the losses will come from the SC states, the Citadels, the alliances that you would have from these smaller schools that, you kind of get used to playing and really promoting in other smaller schools within the state, and then also throwing them some money as well that helps them out as well. But I was thinking along those lines. I wasn't thinking along the lines of losing those regular SEC matchups, because if you do this, you're basically pitting two major, it's ESPN and SEC versus probably Fox and everybody else. So at that point, you're not going to have those SEC matchups because it's going to be a battle until the playoffs come. Now, you may very well still meet them in the playoffs. I think that's great. But you're right. You do lose those Southeastern rivalries that you like the potential to play Georgia, the potential to play maybe a Florida, which we really don't play, but LSU, like you mentioned, Auburn, Tennessee, those types of closer teams that you might like to see. You're going to have to sub out for teams that, are going to be, if they are an away game, going to be very far away. You're talking like Southern California going all the way over there, Oregon going all the way over there, Washington going all the way over there. It's not going to be, that's going to hurt your revenue as well, because you're not going to be filling those seats because you're going to have to fly all the way over there from South Carolina. It's not going to be fun for long, maybe the first time, but the second, third time is not going to be as fun. Al, did you think of it that way? Like if there is an alliance there, you're going to be losing out on more than maybe you're gaining?
No, not necessarily. It's not that it couldn't happen. It's just I didn't really didn't think about that. I like the games with the LSUs, the Texas A&Ms, the Auburns of the world that we and the Georgias, of course, that we like to get into. I'm all for that, especially when we come out on top. It's a pretty good measuring stick, like Houston said. I like that. And I'm all for it. I love having the big games in the Valley, especially, man. The atmospheres are unbelievable there. But at the end of the day, if Clemson's making the playoff and playing for national championships, I don't care about the rest of it.
The Big 12 discussed things with the Pac-12, but they weren't a part of this conversation. Does this really show Big 12's out of here? See you later.
Yes and no. Like I think it's a foregone conclusion that the Big 12 or the Big 8, whatever's left, they're just going to get spliced up amongst whoever. And I think this is more of a chance for the American Conference to come into the fray as the next Power 5 to gobble up who's left. I also think that there's going to be a couple of mid-majors like Boise State and BYU to throw their names out there, just say, hey, we want to get on this money train. So there's going to be a lot of movement. But I think as it shows with Texas and Oklahoma, if it's true that they're not going to move until 2025, then basically every summer until that happens, there's going to be some kind of story and report about this, about divvying up that conference or somebody going to the ACC or somebody going to the Big Ten or an alliance until it happens. Because I think all this is happening at once, playoffs, conference realignment. It's going to be one fail swoop when this all happens. We're just going to be dealing with this every offseason until it finally happens.
Yeah, let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget, make sure to like our videos, share our videos, and follow us over on Facebook. Subscribe to us over on YouTube. We really appreciate you guys getting in. Virgil gets in, says, what's up, guys? Mel Graves gets in. After the way Clemson's defense played against Ohio State last year, I feel sorry for any teams lining up against them this year because it's going to be the best defense in the country and nasty too. I think that's a good little segue. I didn't really even think about this. I just kind of threw it up on the screen. But one question I threw out there, one topic that I wanted to discuss. A Georgia fan posted on one of my videos about Clemson's defense and mentioned that I should watch this video, and it's this Georgia homer who's got a YouTube channel that's pretending to be an unbiased film study video. And you can tell he's a homer because later on in the video, his unbiasedness turns into we when talking about the Georgia Bulldogs, which we do too when we talk about Clemson Tigers. We try to say the Tigers or Clemson, but after a while we give it up. And so you can kind of see it through. And then it was always from a negative point of view, negative on what Clemson did last year, specifically in those games where they did lose, the Ohio State game, I know, and then the Notre Dame game as well. Clemson's defense is one thing where one of the questions out there is Clemson's defense just going to be good on paper? Are Clemson fans too confident in Clemson's defense coming into this season? My question back to those people is, and to the group here, and to you watching, are we harping on Clemson's defense, or maybe is our opponents harping on what Clemson did bad against Notre Dame and bad against Ohio State? Maybe a little too much. I tend to agree with Mel Graves in the sense that, you know what? This team is going to get better. They're going to learn from where they made mistakes. It's called experience, which I also had another commenter say experience was a bogus term as an analyst. Experience is not a bogus term. Nobody wants experience until they lose a game. Then they want experience, so you need that experience. Nobody values experience till you have it. So to me, that comes from a pretty young person. Now, I don't know if the person was young or not. You couldn't see their picture. But to me, if you don't value experience, you're just not experienced. So, Al, I'll start with you. Do you feel like that maybe Georgia, and I mentioned this earlier on in the show, that Georgia fans could be looking at Clemson's defense as there are some weaknesses there based on the games they lost last year? Do you think do you give them caution for that?
Yeah, I would for sure. Like you said, especially in a couple of those games where they look bad. We were missing some key players. Usually it was Tyler Davis, wasn't there, or Skowski wasn't there, or somebody like that. And let's make no mistake, but when you get past the front line, there were some issues there last year, especially with depth. I talked about this. I think it was last week's show. At defensive tackle, that's my biggest concern on defense going into the season is depth at defensive tackle. If Brazee or Davis goes out, I think that's a real problem. I like Trey Williams. I think he's got a ton of potential. And I like Ru Ororo. I think those are, two good guys. But right now, we haven't seen them dominate on the field. So we don't know what to expect behind them. All you know is from last year, if Davis was out, it was a disaster on defense. It was not a good thing. So, I mean, this year is going to be a little bit different, but look, we're more experienced at the ends, whether it's KJ Henry, whether it's Justin Foster, whether it's Justin Mascall, whether it's Miles Murphy, whoever, Xavier Thomas. We got all these guys. I think we're going to be much better at defensive end this year. I think we're going to be much better at rushing the passer. And I mean, you've got, like I said, you've got those two guys at defensive tackle that you should be able to plug in and provide you with quality depth, whether it's going to be the same as Brzee and Davis, a little different story there, obviously. But I think we're going to be deeper at the linebacker position and more talented with a guy like Trenton Simpson who's going to be there. And I think we're going to do better in the secondary as well. I mean, honestly, I think we're going to be better at all three levels of the defense, on the line, the linebackers, and the secondary. So I think it's a mistake. I'm not saying there can't be weaknesses and there's not things you can exploit because it's an offensive game. Okay, there's no doubt about it. It's an offensive game, and I think a good offense is going to beat a good defense any day of the week. However, it's very foolish, I think, to look at a couple games last year, ignore the kind of people we were missing, and think we're going to be the same defense this year, because I don't think that's the case.
Houston, what do you got?
Well, here's the other thing that I want to bring to the table here. If you're looking at the Notre Dame game, let's take Ohio. Ohio State is a different scenario. Ohio State, different offense, different animal altogether. Let's look at Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame closely resembles Georgia in offensive personnel. And I mean, one, it is correct. Clemson was missing a ton of guys. They're going to be improved greatly in all three levels of the defense. But the other thing is, and I don't think Georgia fans are going to want to hear this, Kieran Williams is a better running back than Zamir White. That's just what it is. Kieran Williams is great, and Clemson shut him down the second time they played. You talk about some huge losses that Georgia had in Eric Gilbert right now, who I don't even know if he's going to be on the team right now, and Darnell Washington, who looks like he's not going to be playing in the game. Well, the tight end killed Clemson that first game. Second game, I think, what was his name? Michael Mayer. He had like one great catch. I don't see in certain positions of, I just don't see in certain positions that Notre Dame had last year was better than Georgia, and I don't see Georgia being able to keep up in certain things, in certain positions like that, especially with an improved defense that Clemson has. I think their secondary is going to be amazing. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I think you got to be careful. I think that it all comes back to what Clemson's defense can do and how they can improve. I really feel like past the starters, when you're filling in those gaps with, the Trey Williams and the DeMonte Capeharts of the world, and then you're getting XT back, Foster back, Henry, Miles Murphy. I think that defensive line is going to be stacked. I think in the sense of the defensive line, they mentioned that one of the key attacks is to just run the ball against Clemson. And they focused on the Ohio State film that, it's super easy to run the ball against Clemson. All you got to do is go off tackle, and they can't stop the run off the edge. They can't solidify the edge there. And that just makes me really frustrated because they're really not focusing on the fact that the defense was out of line. I really feel like that because Brent Venables, we know that he likes to get the plays in late. He likes to get it last minute. He mentioned it. The first thing he came out in his conferences and said, hey, we got to fix this. It's not what we wanted, not how we wanted to play. We're embarrassed by how we did it. Our players can still look to the sideline and get the play at the last minute, but be in the right position on the field. In the situations against Ohio State, they were out of position, looking to the sideline, and Ohio State took advantage of that. Now, why was one of the highest paid defensive coordinators not prepared for a hurry-up type situation? I don't know. That's really disappointing, but everybody makes mistakes, and that just happened to be on one of the biggest stages in college football and against a really talented offensive coordinator. You can't take Ohio State for granted there. And they had a pretty stacked offense. They're going to continue to have a stacked offense when they figure out who their quarterback's going to be. But I feel like that they exploited Clemson and it was kind of the perfect storm with how their strategy matched up with what Clemson was doing or what was going to do. Now, again, we mentioned to be careful for certain things, and Clemson didn't seem to do those things. They kind of played on their back foot or on their heels a lot, right? So what I would say is my biggest thing, I've said it from the beginning, is tight ends worry me, because you look at Balin Spector confused, trying to switch off with James Skalski, not knowing what to do. You look at Nolan Turner not on the field, Tyler Venables not knowing what to do, not knowing who to pick up. And so the tight end exploited that. Now, I was going to do a video about this, but come out this week, Darnell Washington, according to reports and according to Houston, who texted me about it, Darnell Washington may not play. Very unlikely that he will play because of a bad ankle sprain. So do you think that, I mean, that was my biggest worry from Georgia, is the tight end. Do you think that's a huge blow, or do you think that Georgia can overcome that? Al, start with you.
Yeah, I think it's a big time blow. I mean, especially since, Eric Gilbert is either not with the team or not a tight end anymore or whatever. I think, who really knows what's going on? I have a feeling he's going to be suiting up for Georgia in that game anyways. But with Darnell Washington is a major mismatch. I mean, the guy is huge, and he's an athletic guy too as well. I mean, we've had trouble with tight ends before. You always want to talk about the Alabamas of the world and OJ Howard running wide open and all that kind of thing. And look, it's happened before. We were all worried about this with Miami. A lot of people were talking about their tight ends, Brevin Jordan and Will Mallory, and they didn't do a whole lot against Clemson. But Darnell Washington is a different beast to me than those guys, athletically, size-wise especially. So, yeah, I think that's a big deal because not only did they lose Darnell Washington, a lot of people are saying they may lose a couple of their receivers as well. We already know they're not going to have George Pickens. I think that's a big deal because I mentioned several shows ago that I thought they had depth at wide receiver even beyond George Pickens. I think there's still talent there because, like I said, Georgia recruits 5-star players every year. But yeah, I think that's a big deal, and the more players that go down, the harder it's going to be.
Houston, what do you got?
Houston's gone.
Uh-oh. Houston's spinning. The spinning wheel. Did we get the spinning wheel last time we had you?
Spinning wheel of death. Ouch.
You know what? Houston just said mic drop. He's tired of talking about the stupid Bulldogs, ready to move on to something else. You know what, Houston? You can't do the spinning wheel of death when you're actually live in the studio. All right. So I don't know how he's going to bounce out on us when he's actually physically there. Al, this will be the first time that all three of us will be together physically in the same room. I'm telling you, the world may just explode when this happens because.
Well, that's not entirely true, Morgan. We all ate together at Sardi's.
We did. I'm saying in studio.
In studio,
on
you're right.
Show together, we will be live.
Of course.
It
ought to be.
Well, Houston will come back. He knows how to get back in. He has the link. But so my thoughts are that I do feel like that Georgia could have attacked Clemson with the tight end. I think it's going to make it even worse. Now you add on, like you said, George Pickens makes it even worse for them. And, Georgia fans don't like to mention – they like to mention Clemson's spring game and how, it wasn't the most exciting out there. But, Georgia's spring game wasn't the most exciting either. Now, JT Daniels did finish with 300 yards passing, but the first half that I watched was very sluggish. And they weren't able to get the first touchdown until they ran a 2-minute drill hurry up and got the defense substituting and found an open guy. It was a struggle there, it seemed like, for Georgia to get things going. And I think the strength for Georgia is going to be the running backs. Now, with Darnell Washington maybe out, with Pickens out, maybe we see something in the sense of Notre Dame with Kyren Williams, where he's catching the ball out of the backfield like a Travis Etienne. So are you now shifting your focus, if you're Brent Venables, to those guys like Zamir White catching the ball out of the backfield now more than they maybe were before these injuries happened?
Yeah, I would for sure. I also think you got to pay attention to their guys. They have some speed, even though it's a lot of young speed and unproven speed maybe at the wide receiver position. But I think they're going to try to take the top off the defense, especially with some of the issues that Zanders and Turner had back there last season. I think they're going to try to go deep on us a little bit. But yeah, you always want to pay attention to the running back coming out of the backfield. I think that's a very strategic move and a very big deal.
Houston, what's your thoughts? You're thinking? Are you thinking they're going to shift their focus to getting the running backs in the passing game now that they're losing the tight ends, or maybe we don't know. I mean, this is a huge game, so
you honestly have to if you're a coach. If you're losing the talent at wide receiver and tight end that Georgia's losing in Gilbert, Washington, you've already lost Pickens and Demetrius Robertson, so you're losing that depth quick. And it's something that Clemson had to do. Honestly, you can liken what Georgia's losing on offense to similar to what Clemson was. You lost a lot of guys in the wide receiving core last year, and you saw at times that was a big struggle, even though Cornell Powell and Amari Rogers really picked it up on the back end. It was felt when you lost Justin Ross and Ngata and Ladson at times. So I think that's going to be something that Georgia's going to struggle with, and they'll have to do something to compensate with it. And you have the running backs to do it in Cook and White.
Hey, we got a tip, fellas. We got from the Big Show, a $5 tip. Thank you so much, Big Show, for tipping to the show. We really appreciate it. Make our show even bigger for tipping us. So thank you for that. When you tip us, you definitely get your comment read. So get over on YouTube and throw in the tips. We need the money. We'll dance for the money. I promise. If you haven't seen some of our previous shows, we will dance. We will dance. Houston, don't shake your head. Don't shake your head.
Morgan,
all right, so Big Show says... Big Show says, O-line is my biggest question for us. We've been getting good players. They're just not starting yet, in my opinion. I'll tell you this, fellas. One of the things that the Georgia film guy was showing me showing on his video was the fact that Matt Bockhorst got pretty much schooled in both Notre Dame and Ohio State game. He was off balance. He was getting basically run over most cases. He didn't seem like right from the snap, his footwork was where he needed to be. Seemed like he was leaning too far one way or another. Now, I believe that Bockhorst, will improve. I know that, he looks good in a music video, but he needs to look good in these big games. One thing that Al mentioned last week was that they could potentially move him over to center if he is not showing success at left guard. Do you think they should just go ahead and move him over? I think he's got too much experience to not be there in a starting position, but I do feel like he was he struggled a little bit in those big games. Houston.
Yeah, I mean, if he's struggling at left guard, yeah, I'd move him to center since he's got that experience. I'm willing to give him a shot. He's a senior guy, veteran guy. I think he's going to improve. I think you need someone like that to anchor one side or the other, whether it's left or right guard. I think there's a lot of talent. It's showing Clemson's recruiting in this class and the next class is going to get there. I think people just need to be patient. And plus, look, if you show minimal improvement from last year, Clemson's offensive line has improved year after year ever since 2015. And I think it's still continuing in that direction. If he doesn't improve, yeah, move him to center, but I'd give him a shot. I think he's going to be okay.
Al, what do you think? Would you just go ahead and move him over to center? John gets in. Dabo still isn't talking up Bach like he normally does players he's happy with even after today. So maybe there is something going on there.
Yeah, who knows? Dabo likes to say a lot of things. He likes to motivate a lot of people in different ways, so you never really know the true story there. I think what Dabo is talking about is the snaps. I mean, it's really all about who can snap the ball consistently and get it to DJ. That's what we really need. We need somebody who can get him the ball without him having to fumble around so he can focus on his reads and do all that kind of stuff. I think Bockhorst is kind of your best option right now. I think just mainly because he's one of the bigger bodies. I think he's a little more physical than some of the other ones might be. Bockhorst, yeah, he did get pushed around in a couple of those games last year, no doubt about it. He's a workhorse. He's one of those guys that's going to do everything it takes to get better at his game. So I'm sure he's been, in the film room all off season. But I think he's kind of a good option to have to get your best five guys on the field. And that would include the freshman Marcus Tate or somebody at left guard. And I like the bulk that Clemson's adding on this offensive line, which is something we've talked about several times. And I think in order to get the best five on the field, Bockhorst needs to be at center.
Yeah, I'm liking it. I think it's a good idea. Big Show gets in with another tip, $2 tip. Big Show, thank you so much. Fellas, we almost have enough. I think we could probably get 2 Happy Meals right now. right now. I hope they got Star Wars toys, because after this, that's where I'm headed. Hey, maybe we could get all three of us. Big Show has already given us enough. I think all three of us could get a McFlurry. If you're down, you want to meet me on Woodruff Road. If you're down. So Big Show says also Nate Wiggins and Andrew need to be, I'm guessing Makuba, need to be starting. Now, I haven't really thought about this much because, when it comes to freshmen, I don't anticipate them getting much looks. Now, if they do start in January, Al, I don't know I can't remember offhand if these two fellas started, were here since January, early enrollees. If they were, that gives them help. That puts them at a better possibility. But if Nate Wiggins and Andrew Makuba did they not come in until the summer, I think that hurts their chances of starting. Now, maybe later on in the season, but Al, what's your thoughts on Wiggins and Makuba? I know you love those two guys. We've done film on them, so I know you love them.
Yeah, I do. Particularly Makuba is long-term at safety anyways. I think he's an athletic upgrade back there, and I really like that. But, I don't know that they can be starting right now. I think we have too much talent ahead of them, especially at cornerback right now. Now, safeties, there's an argument to be made there. Again, we've talked about the struggles. Landon Zanders, Nolan Turner. Now, it's come out that Zanders played through injury last year. Maybe that affected him. We're not really sure. We'll find out real soon in the Georgia game here in a couple of weeks. So we'll see if that was kind of the issue or not. But I don't think they're built well enough right now to maintain a full college season back there and be a starting corner / safety. I don't think that's going to work. I think they need to take some time to get in the weight room, power hour, all that kind of stuff, and get their upper bodies built up a little bit more before they're able to take that beating.
Yeah, and Big Show gets in even further and says those two have too much talent to be sitting on the bench. Houston, what you got?
So I agree to an extent with both Al and Big Show. I think as far as it goes, they need to be in the rotation. They need to play a lot and get a lot of experience this year. I think if there was one that had to start, I would say Andrew Makuba. I'm willing to give Landon Zander a shot, considering he played through injury. You also look at the weight that he added this year. Maybe that's the missing step there for Landon Zanders. But if action needs to be called, I think Andrew Makuba is the guy to do that. As far as Wiggins goes, look, he's talented. He had a great spring. I think he's going to be a great corner for Clemson. But at the same time, Big Al's right. There's too much talent there. Depending on how things shake out with the Fred Davis situation, with that situation and how depth will look that way, you can't just throw him into that situation because you've got a lot of depth. You got Fred Davis, you got Malcolm Green, you got Sheridan Jones, who I've heard has had a great camp. So you never know, but I think Wiggins does deserve at least a shot to play consistently every game.
Yeah, I'm looking at the depth chart right now. This is the pre-fall camp depth chart. So we got safety here, strong safety, Landon Zanders, and Nolan Turner, either or they can Nolan Turner is placed as a starter of free safety or a starter of strong safety. So it seems like he's pretty much got one of those positions locked down. Can we go ahead and say that? I mean, if you're not making one, you're making the other. Landon Zanders is a guy one of those guys that you can go back and watch film, and against Ohio State was pretty awful against the run to the outside against Trey Sermon. And it was because he was undersized. He's gained 17 pounds. I believe that's going to help him out a lot. I do feel like that also he doesn't need to be put in situations where he's going up against Ohio State's left tackle or their best, NFL draft pick tight end. So I don't think, especially in that situation, that was a bad scenario, but he is definitely a year older, more experienced, and also 17 pounds heavier. So I think that will help. Again, you guys are skipping over RJ Mickens. So you got Makuba under RJ Mickens. You think I was pretty hyped up about Mickens from Texas. Got some professional pedigree there. You think that he's at risk of being jumped? I
mean, hey, there's always potential to be jumped. Well, I said this on the show a long time ago.
Position is guaranteed, right?
Yeah, I don't think you really appreciated this comment, but it was the truth. I mean, the coaching staff's job is to go out and recruit somebody better than you, plain and simple. I mean, that's kind of what they're supposed to do, and I think they hit it with Makuba. I think he's that kind of talent. It's just, again, he's just not there yet. Will he jump Mickens this season? Potentially. But Mickens had a lot of talent coming out of high school. He was a highly rated guy, so we'll see how it turns out for him. He's certainly got the year advantage on him.
Before we get to Houston, I want to hear your thoughts. Anthony Weeks with a 9.99 tip. Boom, baby. Yes, I don't know. That might be the largest tip we've ever had. And I know this night's getting close. I think one show we had about $25 one show after everything was said and done. I think we're getting close. Al, you'll have to keep score because I can't do the maths. All right. So whatever the other people did, can you please write that down and get back to me at the end of the show? Okay. All right, Al. So thank you. Anthony, I didn't see any comment in there. So if you have a question, we'll hold one for you. So go ahead, throw in a question and say this is your question and we will throw it up. But thank you, Anthony, for being a part of the show and tipping us. Now we definitely have enough money for a couple of McFlurries, fellas. And by the way, if you haven't checked out our show over on Facebook, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, like this video. I know it's a lot of work. I know you've worked 12-hour shifts at the hospital. I know like Brent up there, you're tired. I know you want to talk about Clemson football, and we do too. But if you don't mind, hook us up, help us out, and get in not only the comments, but like and subscribe and follow us so that you can stick with us. Because, man, this season is going to be hot for sure, fellas. Hot. All right. Because I think Clemson can go all the way. Somebody put in 14-0. I'm looking forward to that as well. All right. So, Anthony, get in there and let us know. Houston, back to you.
Yes. So, as far as RJ Mickens goes, I mean, your advantage, he's definitely got it. He's got the talent. I don't know enough as far as seeing what he's done in the spring. I didn't really have my eyes on him as much as some of the other players. But look, there's some players that come out of nowhere, some that fade, some that do well. I think Mickens has got the talent to do well, to be in the rotation for safety his entire career. It just depends. I mean, you're going out and you're getting top tier talent in every class, so he's going to have to fight to play, and hopefully he can do it.
Bill Sigmund says McFlurry's on the house, and SCU gets in and says, woo. I hope that's a Ric Flair woo. By the way, be careful if you look up Ric Flair on Twitter right now, or as of yesterday. I accidentally, I'm a big wrestling fan. I looked up Ric Flair. Maybe wouldn't recommend that out there if He's all right. So but Weevil gets in and says, what's up, guys? Oh my goodness, big show. Tops hit.
I'm gonna
cry, big show.
Dance, Morgan, dance.
You know what? We need to play the Big Show song. We need to play the intro song for the Big Show. I'm gonna get it piped in. You just give me a few minutes. You give me a few minutes to do this. Big Show says, love the show, guys. I understand what y'all are saying. I just feel that now that we have more talent than we ever had on the team, ! Keep up the good work. Also, linebacker position is stacked. Guys, fellas, before we get into linebacker position, Booth, this is really back to their previous question, but Booth, Goodrich, Green, Wiggins, all listed as cornerback position. On the other side, you had Fred Davis, Goodrich, Green, and Sheridan Jones. Mm-hmm. So to me, the pecking order, a little bit harder for the cornerback, like Alan was saying, a little bit harder. Now, Fred Davis is going to, be in the love shack, the doghouse for some time because of his off the field issues. But Goodrich has already, Dabo came out and said, if we started today, if we played this weekend, Goodrich would be starting. We know Malcolm Green's more of that nickel kind of guy. So you got Booth and Goodrich. Sheridan Jones, I think, already has some practice being a starter from last year. I mean, without Davis there, and the fact that if Green gets held to just specific packages, Wiggins has a good shot too, and especially being 6'2", but again, 175. Venable's really particular about his weight classes. I know he's not 175 still. This was at the beginning of fall. I'm thinking he's probably going to want him more around 200. What do you guys think? 190, 200.
Yeah, if you can get him up to 190 by the end of the year, I think that's where we want to be.
Yeah,
everyone.
I need my button. I agree with Houston button.
Is this one of those I agree with Morgan statements? Wow. We normally get about 21 of those I agree with Houston statements and 0 I agree with Morgan's. But getting an I agree with Morgan, I'm really proud of that, guys. Hey,
I'm agreeing with Houston.
You start throwing
It's just
money
Houston
at me.
agreeing with you.
I start making good takes all of a sudden.
They want. I give the people what they want.
All right. So, Randall gets in. He's talking about Clemson's going to beat up on Georgia. No problem. He's not concerned. Anthony Weeks gets in. My question is, what concerns do you have most about Georgia's team? I already kind of threw it out there. The running backs, the tight end, no longer. So really for me, it's the running backs running the ball and running backs catching the ball. That's my two things right now. We'll get more into it. I haven't done my full game day preview. That'll be September 2nd. But just off the cuff, Houston, do you agree? You feeling the same way answering that question?
Yeah, I mean, I think the running backs are always an issue with Georgia because they're Georgia running backs. And then I guess this is more of an offshoot. It's just I'm always just a little leery about one of these teams having a freshman come out of nowhere. I know that they have a freshman wide receiver. I can't remember his last name, that he's a stud. And it's just like, don't let one of their freshman wide receivers go off. Don't let that happen. Keep it down. Force them to have to nickel and dime it down the field. And as long as you're not giving up chunk plays with the running game, you'll be okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up. You got Gilbert, who, again, is not with the team. Maybe Jermaine Burton, Kyrus Jackson. Arian Smith is one guy super fast. Everybody's talking about him. Justin Robinson, Rosemead Jack Saint, Marcus, he's a fast guy too. Jackson Meeks, I think, is the freshman, Adonai Mitchell.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the guy. Okay, all right, yeah. So I'm not saying they're not stacked. They definitely win the recruiting battles almost every single year. So they definitely are stacked. Alan talks about it all the time. It's not for lack of players.
Yeah.
Now I think Randall gets in, talks about there's a difference between Kirby Smart and Dabo Swinney. There's a big difference. Dabo Swinney can finish a game. Now, I'll tell you, Dabo Swinney's made a mistake. He only made one mistake against Alabama, and then he learned from it and won the next time. Now, I wanted Georgia to beat Alabama in those big games, and they just couldn't do it. They just couldn't finish the game. I mean, they were up like 2 touchdowns at one point in one of the games and couldn't do it. But going back to the big show, talking about linebackers, I thought that was interesting too. If I'm pulling up the depth chart, do you think anybody has a chance to kind of sneak in there? I know that Brent Venables, we're talking about how cornerbacks, he likes to keep them there. But you've got Will linebacker, Balin Spector, that's weak side. Mike linebacker, the general, James Skalski. And then Trenton Simpson. I don't think you're going to unseat Trenton Simpson unless you're subbing for him, and that will be Malcolm Green. Or maybe Tyler Venables in some situations. James Skalski, I think, it seems like Jake Venables is going to take his place on a regular. Vonta Bentley seems like he might have a chance to show up and replace Balin Spector, maybe sub out for him. Is there anybody else? Do you think Bentley could maybe do like a Trenton Simpson and slowly take over for Spector this year?
Alan, I don't want to jump in.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So for Bentley, I think it's going to be something where they're going to get Bentley his time, at least. Mm-hmm. Spector is a senior, give him a chance to be the leader, but Bentley's going to get his fair share of reps. I think there's 3 linebackers out of our stat core that you're going to see more of this year, and 2 of them are freshmen. I think you're going to see Levante Bentley more, you're going to see Jeremiah Trotter Jr. more, and you're going to see Barrett Carter. And Barrett Carter isn't the same type of player as Trenton Simpson, but I feel like there's going to be certain personnel and packages that they're going to mix and match what they need at that nickel position. And so his might play more to what, and I'm throwing this comparison out just because it's the closest one I can think about. Dorian O'Daniel. Okay, mm-hmm. He's more of a Dorian O'Daniel, but he's at least from his film, he looks a little more agile. He can move around a little better. Probably can rush the passer just as good or better. That's what I think of Barrett Carter. But he's going to get his reps this year too. From all accounts, he's done really well. And I think by the end of the year at least, you're going to see him on the field more.
I think later on in the year, you saw Bentley show up and hit people hard and able to stop the run very successfully. Maybe he shows up even earlier. It would be amazing to see if there are struggles in the run game. Throw Bentley out there and just bowl over some people. I love to see number 42 because of the history of that number. Love to see him in that backfield of that Georgia Bulldogs team. Al.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about Bentley taking over for Balen Spector or anything. I'm not sure. They mix and match these linebackers so much. Bentley always struck me as more of a middle type guy. So okay. We'll see how this works out. I think you're going to see. I agree with Houston in the fact that you're going to see Barrett Carter. I think they're going to find ways to get him on the field at the same time as Simpson is at times. Whatever package they may be, whether he's in at middle or whether he's in at weak side or whatever it may be. It might be in garbage time, but they're going to try to figure out how to get Barrett Carter on the field because he's that talented and he's that good already. I'm not, however, going to agree with Trotter. Look, I love Trotter. I love his ability and I love his long-term upside. He's obviously got the pedigree there, but I don't know that he's there yet. And again, who knows? I'm not privy to all the practices like everybody else. I get to read the reports and so on and so forth, but I'm just not sure Trotter is there yet. Will we probably see him this year? Yeah, I think we'll see him some this year. But I don't think he's going to play one of the more prominent roles yet. And I think I'm disagreeing with somebody else. Sigmund, I think Billy Sigmund, I think got in. So I'm probably disagreeing with him too. They might not be all that happy with me. But Big Show mentions the linebackers. Hart Vaughn was in earlier, actually mentioning something about the sick linebacking core, and I think they're right. We have a ton of talent there. We already know what we have in Skalski and those players that start for us as well, Spector and Simpson. But I think there's a lot of young talent in this linebacking crew. That can come in and do a lot of damage. And we're going to see a lot of, variety of this year kind of mixing match and finding out what works best.
It goes back to what those Georgia fans are looking at with previous film. Clemson did what Georgia didn't do on defense. Clemson stacked and retained. Georgia lost and is having to replace. That is a huge difference between the two teams. And I think is not giving the progression enough respect for Clemson. I think if you're looking at Clemson as who they were last year or how they finished the season, not going to be good for you. But we got a Big Show's tip is up. His super tip or whatever, his super chat is up. But we gotta turn on the Big Show here. I tried to get it on the computer, but we might as well play it through the phone. It'll be fine. Can you guys hear it?
I can hear it.
Okay, good. Big Show, we love you, man. Thank you for the tip. We want to see more of you. We're going to be here all season talking about Clemson Tigers. So you like the Clemson Tigers. We like the Clemson Tigers. We want to see more of the Big Show, and we want you to be a part of the show.
That's sick.
We respect you, my man. We really appreciate you getting in from the guys here at the Morgan Thomas Show. That's Big Al and Houston. All right, so Hart Vaughn got in. This will be our last thing of the night, unless you guys have even better questions, which I'm sure you will. But Hart Vaughn gets in, and he mentions we're drooling over Clemson's running backs. Why aren't we talking about, or we're drooling over Georgia's running backs? Why aren't we talking about Clemson's running back? Well, I was listening to Out of Bounds today, and Clemson Dominates gets in. I know he gets in all the time at Out of Bounds. I don't know if you guys hear him. Sometimes he gets on our show too. But Clemson Dominates said, does Lynjay Dixon become 1,000-yard rusher this year if he has, I think it was 6 yards per carry and 12 carries a game? He could, if they go to the playoffs, be an 1,000-yard rusher. And Qualk's first reaction was he never thought about it. But my gut reaction was no, but not in a negative way to his skill. Okay. Right. I don't want to, if Mama Dixon is watching right now, or Daddy Dixon, or any of the aunts and uncles, I don't want to say it's because of his skill at all. I do want to say it's because of how the running back core is shaping out this year. If you look at the roster, I'm pulling it up now. if you look at the roster, you've got Lynn J. Dixon, Kobe Pace already pre-fall camp as co-starters, sharing snaps. And then you've got Will Shipley, and we already know you got Mikey Dukes and you got Phil Maffa there, which we're all big on as well. But they're all situational guys, which leans more towards rotational style. So, Houston, I threw this question to you earlier. Let's start with you again. Houston, can he make that? I mean, he did on the stat sheet. He was able to get close to 6 yards per carry. I don't think last year, but the year before he was. What do you think?
I don't think, if we're just talking about pure rushing yards, like you said, it's all about packages and how Shipley and Pace do, and kind of how the game plan goes. It might vary per team. Now, I say this: he might not get 1,000 yards rushing, but if we were to flip that and say, what's more likely, him to get 1,000 yards rushing or 1,000 all-purpose yards between rushing and receiving, I think that's more likely. I think a lot of the things that Lynn J. Dixon is going to be utilized for is, look, he's a talented receiver out of the backfield. I think he, when you get him the ball in his hands, he's pretty daggone good. And I think getting him in open space is what the game plan is going to be for the future. So I don't think he can necessarily get 1,000 yards rushing straight up. And that's, once again, not any, indicative of his performance. He's a great running back. I think it's just more likely that the packages you're going to see him in are something that'll be more likely to see where he could potentially be at 1,000 all-purpose yards of rushing and receiving.
Mm-hmm. Hart gets in and adds more, Al. All purposes, yes, which is what I was talking about. But we need a first and second down guy that can change the outlook of a game. Does Clemson have that?
So, look, here's the thing with the running backs. You have Lynn J. Dixon, which we talked about. I don't think he's getting to 1,000 yards rushing. I think the all-purpose yards is a much better goal. But one of the reasons I think that is because not only because you have Pace that you're splitting carries with, and potentially Shipley that you're going to split carries with, I think you're going to see a little more emphasis on the passing game with Clemson this year. All these receivers, we always want to talk about DJ and his passing ability. I think you're going to see the percentage of pass to run go a little bit higher for the passing this year than it has when you have Etienne, a guy that is a certified super stud in all aspects of the game. And this year it's going to be a little more by committee, even though they're all immensely talented. As of this moment, they're not Etienne. So I think as of right now, I'm going to say no way to the 1,000 yards rushing. Wouldn't surprise me necessarily. I just think there's too many things going against him.
Big Show gets in. Kobe Pace will be a goal line back. I wouldn't say Kobe. I actually say Phil Maffa. I think Phil is really the biggest guy in that group. I think he's going to be used in those situations. But I wouldn't discount Shipley in those situations as well. A person who can be as fast in a small amount of space like Shipley, I think will be successful in the red zone as well, or the goal line. Hart gets in. My concern is that the run sets up the pass or vice versa, but we can't lean on being one-dimensional. Yeah, you definitely can't be one-dimensional. That's what you ended up getting into last year, which is another part of the equation. Travis Etienne only had 3 100-yard rushing games, and a lot of it was because the offensive line was not performing in the run blocking game as they should. While Bill Lanham gets in and says, I expect Shipley to be the running back with the most yards, especially adding in the receiving. So he feels like all-purpose Will Shipley might have it by the end of the season. Houston, crazy or good?
No, not crazy at all. I think Shipley could have a breakout year like we saw Travis Etienne have his freshman year. You see the talent. I think a lot of people have been talking about Shipley in camp and how amazing he is. So, hey, you might see him early and often, and it would not surprise me if all-purpose yards-wise, he's one of our leaders, one of Clemson's leaders.
I tell you what, man, it's weird because the offense did have to do what the defense didn't have to do. I was just bragging about being able to build and retain. The offense is going to have to build in certain areas, but then reload in certain areas. And also, they're going to have some players on the outside like Justin Ross, who's healthy, and like Joseph Ngata, who I randomly heard something recently where he was dealing with something again. And that to me is like, okay, are you going to be on the, ineligible to participate list every single year, every single game? I mean, it gets to a point where, you're going down the path of becoming a graduate assistant. If you can't play the games, you're going to be on the sideline. You might as well be calling the plays or doing something else. So I want to see the stars who were anticipated to be the stars on the field. I'm not saying any shade towards Ngata, but, there's got to be a point where it's like, you know what? Maybe this is something that's going to stick with me. I got to play through it. They're going to want you to play through a lot of things in the NFL if you want to get that far. You don't want to go to the NFL. You want to work for Morgan Stanley or somewhere else, and maybe you can nurse your injuries and sit behind a desk. But if you're going to be on an elite football team, I can't hear you every single week talking about you're injured or you're dealing with something. I mean, if it's serious, it's serious. But I'm just saying, it's time to show up. It's time to show up. But all right, so big show, starting wide receivers. Who I'd like to see I'd like to see Troy play some. Yeah, Stellato, love to see him. Anthony Weeks gets in, says, what slot will y'all be on or what slot on the Roar will y'all be on? Okay, so let me tell you how this works, because we're right over our hour, and we only usually try to stay an hour. I know we got 40 people in, so the best thing to do with 40 people in is before you leave tonight, make sure you like this video. If you're on YouTube, liking it will help. If you're on Facebook, liking it will help. If you have the opportunity to share with a friend that's a Clemson fan or maybe a Georgia fan who you just want to rub it in their face about how good Clemson is and how awesome their shows are versus our shows are versus their shows, you can go ahead and share it with them. But if you want to continue to not be forgotten and not forget our show, every single week we put out new videos. I put out solo videos, and then every single week Alan and Houston join for the live show. You can do that and be reminded by subscribing and hitting the notification or following us over on Facebook. We will continue to be on Facebook and YouTube as we transition to the Emmy Award-winning Pronk Studios in Greenville. Once we transition to that studio, though, that gives us access, and that's why we wanted to do it, because it's so easy to do it from our man caves. It really is. But we wanted to do this to expand our show specifically to the Roar. And back to Anthony, what Anthony said, Mark Childress is going to be heading up Monday nights before Tiger calls. He's going to do 7 to 8. Everybody's got 7 to 8 on the weekday. Then on Tuesday, Ellis Tolbert, 4th and 16, is going to be 7 to 8 right after Walt, same time slot. On Wednesday, 7 to 8 again, it's going to be Richmond Weaver and his show. So make sure you tune into that. He's got a podcast. And then it's Rich Take on Sports. And then on Thursday will be the main event, fellas. The main event. The Morgan Thomas Show with Big Al and Houston. Thursday nights, right after Walt. Ramona's going to be our producer, so there's no changeover issues from 7 to 8, right after Walt finishes, and we'll be on the Roar Thursday night. Now, I know we have to contend with Thursday Night Football, but I think you can have Thursday Night Football on mute and listen to us as well. Again, we still will be live on Facebook and YouTube. We'll have a producer, Sam Johns, in the back for our Facebook and YouTube. We'll have Ramona for our radio. So we're going to have everything covered, and high definition cameras as well, in a beautiful studio. Thanks to Mark Childress and Will Stewart over there at Pronk Studios in 98 Central. So tune in. Again, we won't be there. We won't be doing a show next week because we will be at the kickoff show with the Roar. That'll be, I think, from 4 to 8 p.m. Over at Twin Peaks. They're going to have a big live show with all the radio hosts there, from the morning, Mickey Plyler, all the way to Walt Neptula, and then us as well. And then on Thursday, September 2nd, 2 days before the matchup of the year, us three will be in the studio, as I mentioned. So tune in. Make sure you subscribe and follow so you don't forget. I'll try to throw out some posts there so you don't forget as well. And Al Kuhn gets in. I think this is a good segue to the end, fellas. He gets in and says, y'all are way better than Thursday Night Football. Al, Houston, I'll let you guys kind of sign off of what you want to say. Al, what do you want to say to Al Kuhn and the other fans out there as we get started into our new adventure this season?
Al Kuhn, the mayor. All right, it's about time you get in. All right, I've been seeing your political posts ready, pulling for you, my man. You've been with us a long time. We share the same name, okay? It's going to be a good season, and we're in for the long haul. Hope you pay attention like you always do, and get in with us as always. Al, we appreciate your support, man.
And Houston, what you got to say for the fans out there you're looking forward to this season? And again, just thank them for their support.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited. You know, I put out a tweet when this went live. It's been 8 years since I worked at the Roar, and you know, interned for Roy Philpott, Walt Deptula. Had no idea what I was doing, so this is kind of coming full circle. It's kind of nuts. So I'm really excited. I'm really thankful that everybody's watched. This is going to be a fun ride, at least for this season. And so everybody tune in on Thursday nights. You know, we'll be watching the games on Saturday, going to games, and we'll be talking about it every Thursday night. And we're just excited for y'all to be a part of our show.
Yeah, looking forward to the show. We got some new sponsors to help us through. Obviously, your support is always welcome, and we'll try to do more as the season goes on. Al's going to have his picks against the spread, so if you like to do those sort of things, make sure you tune into what he has to say. Houston's going to have his gripe or anger moments of the week, so what he's angry about, what he has a problem with.
Houston has a problem.
So we got a few segments that are going to be specific to those guys, and I look forward to seeing what we can do throughout and continue to expand, maybe even do some more on-location things. Speaking of on-location, we will be again at Twin Peaks next week for the Roar's kickoff show with the rest of the guys over and Kelly over there. But don't forget, we also have tickets to some of the games this year. So if you want us to hang out or come see or you know, maybe steal a couple of chicken wings as we walk by your tailgate, let us know. We'd be happy to give you a high five and maybe even throw you a free Morgan Thomas Show Big Al Houston sticker that we have that we just got in as well. Hey, let me show you these things. Look at these bad boys. I mean, these are legit. These I don't think that you can really call these stickers. These are decals, my friend. They're thick, they're vinyl, and I had the original one out. I had it on the back of my Honda. The color is still good 3 years later. 3 years, the Clemson orange still shining, beautiful, just the way it was right out of the box. All right, fellas, for myself, for Big Al and Houston, we appreciate you for joining the show tonight. We hope you stick with us and subscribe, and don't forget to join us next week and every other thing we put out there. But we'll see you, Tiger fans, at the top of the hill.